Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our weekly front ends and Jupyter server and kernels call. Today is Wednesday. We're starting off recording this meeting for the YouTube channel. And I think we have first up in the agenda is Andre.
Hey folks, I wanted to give a quick update, plus also potentially, provide an opportunity for everyone to provide feedback on that. During the last triaging group call, and probably you all know what is a triaging group, but if not, it's a group that meets every Tuesday and we triage issues. All the new issues are getting automatically labeled with needs triage. So we triage them, make sure they have a full description, uh, involve Jupyter, and not some other things, and fit the certain bar is expressed in the issue description and so on. So we had this one issue involving Docker, right? So Jupyter and Docker, not just Docker. And so potentially we could have closed it, right? Because it involves Jupyter and it's not, there is no like a pure reproduction in JupyterLab. That's what we usually ask people for. But for this one, for Docker, I thought it would be nice and to at least have an issue of Docker and JupyterLab like interoperation at least open for visibility. So we added, me and Rosio talked about it, added a Docker label and have not closed this issue. So yeah, just kind of for your information and potential feedback. Yep, that's it. Thank you. The issue example is in the chat. It has a Docker label if you would open it.
I can go next.
Yep.
Assuming that folks can hear me.
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So there is one pull request that I opened quite recently, but it addresses a thing that I broke in Jupyter Lite earlier because we wanted to fix displaying images in Markdown cells. I allowed to swap the resolver, URL resolver in applications based on JupyterLab components, and that worked. But it also meant that because we are now base 64 encoding the images in Jupyter Lite when rendering them in Markdown, we also encode the URLs to the images if they are used in an anchor link, which means that these links do not work. So I'm proposing to expose a little bit more context about what URL we are resolving, like what is it for in this pull request, and I would really hope it to go into 4.4, sorry, 4.5 alpha beta so that we can fix it up on Jupyter Lite side. Go ahead, Vidar.
Hey, this is with the render MIME interface, right?
Yes.
What's
yes,
the standard for being backwards compatible there?
Yeah, this adds a new optional argument. So it is backwards compatible, and the reason why I'm adding this as a context object is so that we can also extend it in the future and add more options without adding second or third argument.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, another pull request I wanted to talk about, and this is more relevant to the server and kernels, is around the bug where if we are switching notebooks, we sometimes get wrong idle status even though kernel is executing. This is because messages on the control channel, sorry, in the on one of the channels gets incorrectly interpreted. The status messages gets incorrectly interpreted, and server has something since recently to filter out messages when accounting for user activity. And while there are other attempts to fix the issue, potentially by rewriting the model of the notebook and how it is stored in Jupyter Server, like who owns the execution state, etc. We thought that maybe we could patch it up in JupyterLab for now. And the current exploration is centered around, well, we will just block list the messages for which we know that those do not actually represent the status that user cares about. And it just so happens that the pull request in Jupyter Server was opened earlier, which created a tradelet listing these message types to ignore. This is, I think, exposed as a untracked message types tradelet. So my current thinking is, could we reuse that on the front end? Could we like expose that on the front end and filter out any messages, any status messages coming from a parent of this type? The obvious disadvantage is that we would probably need to add this information to the page config or somewhere else, expose it to the front end. And I worry that people would start relying on that. So maybe not because it's not very useful, but then it's a rather long list. Jason?
Okay, so you're figuring out the provenance of a status message based on its parent header, is that right?
Yes.
And you're trying to say if the parent header indicates a control message, then like it doesn't indicate the status, the kernel status.
Yes.
We could, and what we don't have is the channel the message is coming on. So we're trying to infer the channel the message is coming on based on the parent
We don't
message
have the channel for the parent. We have the channel on which the message came itself.
Right, right. So, I mean, we could keep track of the parent messages that were sent out. Can we? If two front ends are connected and one front end sends a message to the control channel, will the other front end know about that message, or will it come in and get a parent message that's like totally random and it doesn't know what's going on?
We can explore that. I'm not sure if like another worry would be like how long is the history gonna get?
Right.
If we track all the historic.
Yeah. I guess one concern I have is, and maybe it doesn't happen in JupyterLab, so maybe it's not an issue. We at least were abusing the system in times past to send like autocomplete messages to the control channel so that it could happen in parallel with the code executing, stuff like this. So having inferring the channel based on the message type is maybe lossy, may not be as precise as we want. But the second question, I'm really glad Ian's here. this also comes up when you, excuse me, when you have the subshells. Ian, is there a way that we disambiguate idle messages from different subshells?
It's from the parent header again. So the parent header will have a subshell ID or not.
Okay.
So we are always sending idle messages, sorry, status messages for every message with the appropriate parent header. And your previous comment, yes, you're completely right. IPyKernel is very permissive about what channels it allows messages to come in on. Basically, you can send a control message to the shell channel and it will carry on, and mostly vice versa.
So maybe we need this fallback, like this inferring framework that Mike is saying, but it'd be nice if there was a way to get like very complete and accurate information moving forward. If there's some change we can make to make it.
Is it as simple as extending what is allowed to be sent in the parent header?
I mean, you have an arbitrary metadata field, so we can put whatever we want, right? That can come back. So we could respond to other JupyterLab clients. I mean, your kernel may be connected to other clients besides JupyterLab, but that's probably not the common case.
Okay. I added some brief notes on the agenda for the concepts that we discussed. If you have more, please do comment on the pull request and we'll keep exploring that. Again, the objective here is to get a quick and dirty solution which will be easy to remove once we have a proper solution. But if exploring that we arrive at a better end goal final solution, that's even better. So okay, one more not pull request, issue that I opened on IPyKernel, taking advantage of this being a combined meeting. So in IPython, we now have something called Notebook Magic. Well, that Notebook Magic was there for a long time, but since relatively recently, it allows to save all the outputs and the metadata, so that when like a user is experimenting in an IPython console, then they type %notebook untitled.ipynb, and they open that notebook and they see everything that was displayed and generated during the interactive IPython session. And that works now pretty well. After we iterated on it, there were some wrinkles we had to iron initially, but it doesn't work in IPyKernel because well, it works. It doesn't work only for like matplotlib images, which are using display publisher, because it overrides the publish method. Now, my question is it reasonable to add 2 lines of code which save each output which is published by IPyKernel to the history manager of IPython, so that this Notebook Magic works as well in like Jupyter console or when connecting to an arbitrary Jupyter kernel as it works when using IPython? I do have some like objections of my own, because it feels like we would be duplicating the memory use, because now like it is not that much of a duplication for IPython, because IPython would not normally store the output, so it's just of one of n with respect to the number of executed cells, but this is like reasonable. But for notebooks, which are like the typical interface of IPyKernel, it was so far like outputs would use 100 megabytes, and now they will use 200 megabytes, and which will be potentially larger than what was used, which will be larger than what was the increase for IPython to implement that feature. So maybe that should be behind a feature flag. They just wanted to see if there is enthusiasm about this feature or strong opinions, just to validate my intuition that maybe that should be behind a feature flag, or I don't know, maybe there should be some other way to configure it. By feature flag, I mean a tradelet.
So your question is, do we want this in IPyKernel?
Yeah.
Because there's a memory cost that you pay. I think it's awesome. I think it's worth trying.
So maybe if it turns out that everyone wants this feature enabled, then we can switch back, like switch the default later. Okay.
Is it just a matter of calling the parent method?
No, we cannot call the parent method because the parent method is printing out to the standard output indiscriminately.
Okay.
Well, probably we could do something like with redirection, but currently there is 3 or 4 redirection wrappers when we are at the level of IPyKernel, so I don't want to add another one.
You're just gonna copy the code basically into the.
Yeah, it is currently like kind of, yeah. I will copy that 2 lines which are needed, and add some conditional there.
So if this is on, and any output produced with display will be stored for the entire lifetime of the kernel.
Yes.
Right, that's an expensive feature to have on by default. So
yeah, that
Yeah.
was also my doubt, but I'm kind of arriving at if users are using like Jupyter kernel or Jupyter console a lot, they can just configure that to be their default without impacting everyone else.
We could also, like in Bash, right? You can set a history length. We could set a history length of like the last 100 commands or last 50 commands or something, and make it some sort of reasonable number so that we have a cap on. I mean, it's not a cap on the memory because any output can be arbitrarily sized, but it's at least a cap on something. And then like in Bash, you can always configure history length to be longer if you want.
Yeah.
Or we can make it so that you have to like start a command that's like start recording, and then
I don't want to go into detail to all the pain I had to go through to figure out how to disable history in Jupyter over the years, because it just blows up memory if you have a shared service. It's just, yeah, it's already enough settings you have to hit to make sure that you don't store history somewhere of something that ends up blowing up memory and bringing down a service for a lot of users. So
that sounds like we need some better docs. I hope
it's just that things have changed over the years as well. And then, yeah.
I hope your painstaking like discoveries there made it into some doc somewhere that was like, hey, if you want to really streamline the memory use, here's the like 3 settings that you need to set.
Not my knowledge, but yeah.
Okay. If you happen, anytime you have a pain point like that, even if you can't like actually document it, please, for the good of the community, just at least mention, hey, I just changed these 3 settings. Somebody else can add it to the docs or whatever. But, or if you happen to remember, that would be awesome.
I know how to disable history manager. At least I know that there is a thread where someone else who implemented that initially responded to my question. It was after Twitter, but before Blue Sky, so another platform.
Vidar, would you suggest, or anybody else, would you suggest like explicitly turning on this add outputs, right? Already we're recording inputs, right? So it's just a question of, do we add outputs? Would you suggest an
We're not
explicit
storing
turn on?
outputs already. We have in and out, right? The magic variables, underscore in and underscore out. But there's
Yes,
again some history limit to that. But that probably doesn't include display, right? That's the problem.
Yes, exactly. So outputs were stored on and off. It's kind of like some textual outputs were stored, others were not. It was removed at some point, then it was restored. So yeah, right now in the latest version of IPython, everything would be stored by default, but not in IPyKernel. Maybe
Right.
we should have that like different and configurable, more configurable in
Okay, but is it
different defaults in IPyKernel? That's what
is
I'm
it
saying.
storing it into the same history manager
Yes,
with the
the
same
Mhm.
configuration? Okay, so it won't be using any more outputs or not. It will just be capturing an additional source into it.
Yes.
So if it has like a history length of X, it is already dropping things off.
Do we have a configurable history length?
Don't we?
Or is it just on and off?
There was at least an attempt at some point, but whether that was dropped, I don't remember.
Okay. So the question is, should we enable this with a flag? And should the flag be default on or default off?
Yeah. Okay. I think we are like converging towards it should be disabled by default. It should be possible to enable in IPyKernel, and there should be potentially some more configuration, more granularity as to how much of history is stored in IPython. Because once it is implemented in IPython, it propagates to IPyKernel by itself. Like,
I think I would argue that at least at some future point, enabling it by default and then then advertising percent notebook, because I don't know that many people know about percent notebook, but it seems like that's exactly the kind of tool. If you're just playing around and you're like, "Ooh, I want to capture that," just typing percent notebook is incredibly convenient, and saving some number of those outputs, a history back. To me, it feels like that's incredibly convenient and typically not going to be completely onerous in a single user scenario, for example. But we don't have to start there. I'm just saying it sounds really great.
Isn't output turned off by default anyways? At this point, I don't know. At least in the history DB, it looks like it's defaults output capturing to off. It's been a long time since I read it, and it's like I remember there being like multiple files you have to check. Maybe
yeah, this might not be respected. This is I will iterate on it.
Mike, you have one more item on 4.5?
I think the last item is related to the conversation we had last week, which was it's Mike's says should we call her feature freeze on 4.5? And that was kind of what was in talks last week. Anyone have any where's my
Apologies for that. I had to drop for a second. Okay, so my final point was around the feature freeze for JupyterLab 4.5. And I think we hit the extended deadline of 15th of September last Monday. So I know that there are many great pull requests being opened tackling the debugger, but I think at this point we just should start pointing any new pull requests towards 4.6, if that makes sense, and try to review, merge, and release a beta as soon as possible. Jeremy, do you have, because you mentioned that last time that you wanted to really to open some more pull requests. Do you still have anything?
Yeah, I'll open one very quickly, but it's really not finished yet. But I think as long as we have the pull request open and visible, maybe it's fine to call the feature freeze, because we can work with that and then put the focus on reviews and merges. There is still one that I really wanted to work on, but yeah, I'm not sure. I've been busy with other things, but yeah, I will see. It was about being able to support recent comments in the comment palette to improve usability. But this one likely requires a change in the window as well, so may add a little bit of delay. So I will see about that one. And the other thing we discussed last week was, yeah, the plan for the content visibility PR. If we still need maybe a day to decide for the feature freeze. I looked at it again. The PR we have open, I can put this in the chat. Merged main into it, and I think people were okay to, merge it as is, so it's available, but not the default. Then we make a new alpha, and then I know Miriam has been working on the minimap support for other modes. So that's what we were talking about, like that will be a requirement to try the content visibility as the default. It needs to support the minimap. I'm not sure if she opened PR already. So we may need a little bit of time for that. But there could still be an alpha out in the meantime, right?
Yes. So when it comes to the windowing modes, I would say we can still accept PRs which are bug fixes, and that is really a bug fix. Once the ability to the new windowing mode gets merged in alpha, and then we are swapping for the better one during beta. I think that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, the scrolling issues are kind of the top priority. Well, not necessarily the top priority, but like the top issues that people have been reporting for sure. Yeah.
Okay, I will wait till the end of the day, and tomorrow we'll drop a message on the release tracking issue that we are entering feature freeze and new enhancements will be tagged for 4.6, and we'll try to review everything in 4.5. And when it comes to the command palette, or rather the improvements to it. I think if there are some changes in Lumino that need to be made now, maybe we can still do that. Maybe we can still squeeze it in. But I'm not sure if we want to wait for all this cycle. Like if there is something which would block you from experimenting in an extension, I think we should be a little more lenient with accepting a PR in Lumino. But I think we should really think about getting that out by JupyterCon.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure yet what would be needed in Lumino, but it will definitely be backwards compatible. So anything we add there, it would be like optional arguments to the command palette that if we want to keep a history of executed commands. I think that was the idea. So it would definitely be backward compatible, but yeah, I think it will also require, I'm not sure we have like a proper app in the Lumino code base that makes use of the command palette. I was looking at that at some point a few months ago for like testing all of this, maybe in Lumino directly before integrating lab. I was also wondering maybe there is a way to do all of this in lab directly. So that could also be an option, but yeah, I'm not sure. Nick, you can go ahead.
Yeah, command palette. Love some command palette. Don't like modal command palette and feel like modal command palette would be really hard if you started putting history in there. Anyhow, history of commands is a stepping stone to programming lab declaratively with a history of commands. So being able to build command macros that take other commands as inputs would be one of the more amazing things that we could possibly do with JupyterLab. Ignore the AI stuff. Yes, it would do great at those things. So a demo app in Lumino would be cool, but I'm not sure if the opinions are really like the Lumino opinion of the command palette is actually stricter than the way we use it in lab. Like we hand back hot DOM objects and all kinds of stuff at the output of those things. That is not what it is intended to do. It's supposed to be DOM JSON all the way down. But like an incredible thing would be if you've used one of those, non-destructive graphics editors or something like that, where it's, okay, first I made a box and then I changed the format of the box and then I rotated the box. Those become three things in your history. And then you'll be able to grab those three things in your history and make them a new thing and then parameterize them and bang, now you got a new reusable component. So I have been meaning to do that kind of demo for a while, but I feel like if you start exposing history, then you can start doing these kinds of things. And a user could say, I want to build a new command out of these other commands. And then it's like, it's incredible, now you can make a MIME type for that command. And I'm going to boop, make a MIME type. And now IPyLab can boop, punch that command. And now you get this, this new thing. So like, I think a demo of this in IPyLab would actually be very interesting before doing it in lab itself, and certainly before doing it in Lumino. Ian is up. What's up, Ian?
So, I mean, it's slightly related and slightly orthogonal. Something Nick and I talked about before. I'm working on using those command informations in the JupyterLite terminal, so we can run commands with tab completion from the terminal. And that it's a bit rubbish at the moment, but I have a poor demo. I haven't even shown it to Jeremy, so it's that poor. But the idea there would be, if that works, we can chain commands together in scripts and run them together, and and pass arguments through and so on. but I don't know if that's really orthogonal. Of course, at the moment, that would only work in Jupyter Lite, not Lab, because we can't run a separate Lite terminal in Lab, although that might be something else we'd want to look at eventually.
Yeah, I mean, some of the original gnarly pants in browser kernels back on Jive, they just had app just hanging out. Your Jupyter app, it was just there. It was on the namespace. You can do whatever the hell you wanted because it was all run in DOM. So you actually had it. Like, it's pretty wild, if you can actually program your own UI in your own UI, you can get yourself into a place where you cannot escape. And, if those changes are persistent, you cannot get back out. I'm going to set my text color to transparent. Good luck. It's over. But, so you need some way to undo those things. But yeah, like a labrc.json, YAML, TOML, whatever, that someone could create to configure their own environment the way that they want it is pretty amazing. And the other place that this goes is workspace. So workspace JSON, which we now have in Lite, which is crazy. I feel crazy when I reload and it opens my things back up because it didn't do that for so long. So thanks to Martin and everybody else that helped on that. That's the basis for creating your own Jupyter experience, that workspace. So, if one imagined in the beginning there was the command line, you get a blinky black box, and you say, add JupyterLab. And now, it puts it up into that Quake or Doom style terminal. You never want to lose that command line. That thing's important. But bang, now my main area is JupyterLab, and I've got this collapsible area that is the other thing. And now I want to put Notebook next to it or something else next to it. We fully decouple all those things, and that's all commands. It's all just a bunch of commands, and that would really change a lot of things about how Jupyter stuff works. And we would need Mike stuff for plugins to be able to load dynamically. There's a lot of things that would go out the door on the JavaScript side because those things would not always be there. You wouldn't be guaranteed to have certain things on the page. And so, some things would just break. Like React, you could get multiple copies of React. So yes, Jeremy, I mean, command history is amazing. Thinking about it in the context of turning a set of command histories of history commands into a new command, and baby, now we got S expressions, except they command Jupyter stuff, and it's incredible.
Yeah, that was also, so back to the AI stuff, be super useful because we've been experimenting with exposing all of the comments to the LLMs. But then if you can have users specify like a sequence of actions they would like to have, by just saying like I want this command and then this command and this command, like a macro, and then the LLMs will have access to this as well. So that's quite powerful. Again, we're back to like having everything around comments. Yeah, back to the original issue. Yeah, I will see. It sounds like it may require a bit of discussion. So I will have a look maybe tomorrow at that remedial recent comments, and maybe we can move it to 4.6 instead. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, the big place where I would want to use this is in testing. So if I could describe, as close as possible as I get to human text without asking an LLM to do it for me, I would like you to open this notebook, run this thing, then generate an image on disk of the thing, or generate a PDF, or, well, let's not talk about PDF today. the endless rabbit hole, and then get it back out, like that would change everything. There would be no Node.js in the loop. It would be, JupyterLab would start a browser with webbrowser.open. And I mean, we did do this, right? We demoed that with Jig. But, the best automation is no automation, right? Like the thing just does it. It's a native headless app. That would be, I guess you actually would want a browser automator in the loop specifically for PDF. You would specifically want it for the ability to get out the hot DOM and all the vector objects as a PDF. That's worth it. That's worth raising the level of complexity.
Just through a quick time check in the chat. We still have a few other speakers and a little over 10 minutes from the end of the call. Jeremy, does that sound good to go forward with the other speakers?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So I think up next we have Vida.
Yeah, so this was about the Jupyter server / kernel call, so that we should be merged in. I think the conclusion last time was that, yeah, we needed to have one more Jupyter servers call to let any people jacked. It was just me and Ian last week, so there wasn't any strong objections. So yeah, I think we can probably officially call it, but we need to just put a note out on the team compass. And yeah, if any late comers have any reasonable complaints, it's not very hard to split them up again. So,
do you want me to change the server kernel's calendar entry to mention this? That we are currently meeting on Wednesdays during the front ends call? Maybe that's a way to get information in the place where people look for it.
Yeah, you can do it after tomorrow, probably. I'll be there tomorrow, at least.
Okay.
That would be great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Vida and Jason. Up next we have Nick. Or Nicholas, sorry.
Yeah, hello. So I just wanted to quickly highlight this PR that I put in the chat. So it fixed a very old issue and add a run button in the input prompt of the cell. And so maybe some people may have opinion on it because it takes some space in the input prompt that is used to switch from command mode from edit mode to command mode, or that can be used to drag a cell. And there are also some commands from Mike to be able maybe to not only have the run cell command, but maybe be able to select other commands. So yeah, that's it. Just wanted to highlight it if some people have opinion on it to be able to move forward. So maybe not discussing it here, but maybe on the PR.
Thank you, Nicholas. Jason?
Can I make every time hover comes up, accessibility is an issue. And if you're trying to use it, for example, on an iPad or whatever, you don't have access to hovering. And so I think we've typically tried to stay away from, or tried, if there was a solution that involved hovering, we tried to think really hard, is there a way we can do this without mandating that someone hovers, which I think this is triggered by hovering over the cell, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I'm curious if you've thought about, so we had this discussion, right, a couple months ago about should we have a play button? And I think William Stein chimed in and said, yeah, when we removed the play button on CodeCalc, like there was a huge uproar. Like it was clear signal that the play button was very useful and lots of people liked it and used it, per cell play button. I'm curious if there was some thought about having a play button that's more permanent or triggered on the current cell without requiring a hover.
Not on my side. See, before this PR, Jason Way open one, and I think it's in each PR. Every time a cell is active, you have the run button. I think this is it.
Okay.
So this is something I did not reuse in this PR. But maybe we can maybe do that. About accessibility, I think it's not an issue because there are still keyboard shortcuts and
And a play button at the top as well. Yeah.
button at the top. So I think it's not about accessibility, but maybe about using some pad will be an issue, sure. So I don't know. This is what I want to discuss to know if some people think that we should have it always available or have an opinion on it. So yeah, please feel free to comment on the PR.
It feels like something like this, like I wouldn't have an opinion on it until I actually started using it. And then I would develop an opinion. Maybe something like this is something we merge or even merge behind a flag, and then try it out during the beta phase, and then decide at the end of the beta phase, okay, everyone that tried it, how does it feel polished enough to ship? Is it good enough to try out? Or do we have tweaks that we want to make to it, etc.?
No, this is working. Yeah. It's good enough to try it.
Yeah.
So by default, is it opt-in or opt-out?
I think by default it's opt-in currently.
Okay.
Then, yeah.
But we can make it opt-out for the duration of beta,
Yeah.
and then switch to opt-out during the release, and then in the next release cycle, if there is a lot of people saying they wanted to use it, then we could switch it to opt-out.
Sure. I can modify it and maybe fix the test. I just wanted to wait for some opinion before fixing it, but okay, cool, thank you.
I think last up on the agenda is Jason.
Yeah. Wait, is there someone currently sharing their screen?
No, I don't think so.
If you want, I will share my screen here and click this link. We've mentioned this PR triage board.
It's green screen for me at least.
Yep. I'm trying to get the right link over here. Get the right browser over here. There we are. So we've mentioned this PR triage board. We just wanted to say that we now have it automatically updated from the .github repo, and it's enlightening. We have in the Jupyter, this covers the whole JupyterLab org. In the JupyterLab org, we have 19 PRs from first-time contributors, 44 PRs from early contributors. That's less than 10 closed PRs for the person, etc. And lots of bot PRs, etc. It's really easy to, so I'm bringing this up just to, if you're looking for PRs to review and you want to concentrate on a particular segment of people, here's a great way to do it. It's relatively easy to filter on a particular repository, just repository, say JupyterLab. And so here's filtering just down to the JupyterLab PRs. And the big change since last week is we've made this so that it's very easy to stand up your own PR triage board. So we made it a composite action that you can easily use in any org or any selected number of repos. The Jupyter GIS project already has it up for the Jupyter GIS repo, etc. So just making this, just advertising this board as a way to interact with the PRs that's not so overwhelming of 270 PRs in this org. You know, where do I start? It helps you, filter down to segments of PRs that maybe you want to concentrate on. The other tabs here, no maintainer engagement. So this is nobody that has triage or commit access. So that's what we define as a maintainer, somebody that has triage or commit access on that repo. So here's PRs that, nobody, their tests are passing and nobody's responded to. Bot PRs, in case you just want to quickly go through and clean up. A lot of these are Dependabot type of things. Approved but unmerged. Yeah, so maybe there's a clear next action there. The documentation PRs is an attempt to try to filter out PRs that may be super easy to review or require less experience to review in the code. Right now, this filtering doesn't work so well for us, but it's an open source project. Feel free to update the filtering so that all of our documentation PRs show up here. And Mike, you have a question. By this definition, so I think you mean the maintainer definition, which is triage or commit or admin access?
Yep. I think there is, Nicola should be, if I'm correct, is in the seasoned contributor but not maintainer column.
Are there people here that should
Florence,
be
in the left column if that definition of a maintainer is applied in that view as well? Because I think we are pretty permissive with the triage access. So basically, I hope that everyone who is in displaying, maybe not everyone, but most people who are in the seasoned contributor, I hope they have triage access, because that allows you to add labels and make CI not fail because of a missing label. If anyone doesn't have a triage access but is opening PRs and would like to, please do let me know, and I can help you with that.
It's very easy for us to change that definition. So you're calling out that there are people that are opening PRs here that you feel like either should have triage access or do have triage access, and this column is mislabeled. I'll go check that just to make sure.
It also might have something to do with like whether a person has a triage access versus whether they belong to a triage team.
Or, well, that doesn't matter. We actually count inherited permissions. It may be that we first prioritize first-time contributors, early contributors, seasoned contributors and maintainers. Let me look into that. That's a really good question. Are there people like, is this Jason Weil? Yeah. It seems like he at least has triage access on the JupyterLab repo. So it seems like he should be over in the maintainer column. I'll check into that. And it's easy for us to change the definition of maintainer. Right now, there's just a list of permissions that we check. And we can just say, instead of triage, we want commit access or admin access. But I think the idea behind maintainer responding was somebody from sort of the insiders in the project has responded to this PR. Or maybe we distinguish between core contributor and maintainer or something like that. Or we distinguish between maintainer and committer. Okay, if there's, I'll check into on that column, but if there's other information that would be helpful to you in triaging what PRs you look at to review, please let us know.
Would it be possible, technically possible, to create one board for the entire Jupyter enterprise?
Yes. Well, I potentially yes. Right now the query is over the org. But and the permissions on the app are given inside of an org. I'm not sure if you can have an app that has permissions to a different org, which is what you would need for the
You
enterprise.
can install apps to multiple orgs if you are not scoping it to an org.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a publicly visible app.
Yes. But can one app installation on one org there might be a boundary in the permissions. And I don't know if you can install apps at the enterprise level that would have sort of permissions across multiple orgs at the
Yeah,
same time.
that's probably not easily possible. It probably doesn't matter that those orgs are in enterprise. It just matters that these are multiple orgs.
Yeah.
I don't know if it is a good idea necessarily, but just wondering, especially like because I would often look at PRs in Jupyter org, in IPython org, and JupyterLab org. These are the three where I focus. So it would be useful if I could like have one board and filter to these three and use that as a reference.
Yeah, I guess.
And that would also
yeah.
also remove this worry that, for example, Matthias brought up a couple of times that we have too many orgs and it's difficult to manage things between orgs. Like this is already helping with the problem that we have too many repositories.
Yeah.
But can it also solve the bigger problem?
That is a really good call. I think there's a link to or maybe there's not a link. Oh yeah, relatively straightforward. If you click on that link in the notes, do you want to open an issue in the repo for this action? And we can look at cross org permissions. Oh, and we're over time. So please open an issue if you have any other things that you think would help.
Thanks, Jason. That brings us to the end of the call. Thanks everyone for sticking around. I'll go ahead and stop our recording here.